Arena 1 to 5, Giant Control. Giant Control is like the comfort food of Clash Royale decks. It's simple, filling, and works every single time if you play it right. The Giant's job is to tank damage while your support troops do the actual hitting. He isn't fast, but he's reliable, and that reliability is exactly what makes him dangerous in lower arenas. Let's start from the beginning. In Arena 2, you'll be using Giant, Mini P.E.K.K.A, Musketeer, Archers, Bomber, Goblins, Spear Goblins, and Fireball. It's a balanced setup that gives you both air and ground coverage. The Giant walks in front taking all the hits while your support units do the cleanup. Use Fireball to clear grouped defenders and you already have a working win condition. In Arena 3, things step up a bit. Your setup becomes Giant, Mini P.E.K.K.A, Musketeer, Mega Minion, Skeletons, Goblin Cage, Fireball, and Arrows. This version is sturdier thanks to the Goblin Cage, which helps distract tanks. The Mega Minion also boosts your air defense. It's a clean upgrade that still sticks to the same Giant Control idea but feels more secure on both sides of the field. Once you hit Arena 4, you move into a more tactical version. Here you run Giant, Knight, Musketeer, Skeleton Dragons, Electro Spirit, Inferno Tower, Fireball, and Arrows. The Knight gives extra protection for your Giant, Inferno Tower shuts down tanks instantly, and Electro Spirit handles swarms while resetting units. It's the version where you really start learning timing and patience. By Arena 5, Hog Cycle becomes the star deck, but if you still enjoy Giant Control, this stage is where it teaches you how to read opponents. The moment they spend too much elixir on defense, you punish them with a new push in the opposite lane. The trick with Giant Control is patience. Don't drop the Giant at the bridge and pray for damage. Start him behind your King Tower so you can build a full push and react to what your opponent plays. If they overcommit, that's your green light. 2 solid Giant pushes are usually enough to take a tower because he hits hard and your supports often survive. Most players in the early arenas panic when they see a Giant crossing the bridge. That's your advantage. Stay calm, manage your elixir, and punish mistakes. The biggest error new players make is stacking too many supports too close behind the Giant. One Fireball and everything melts. Keep your spacing clean so you can recover fast if things go wrong. If you feel your Giant isn't reaching the tower often enough, pair him with Bomber or Baby Dragon. Their splash clears distractions and opens the lane. Musketeer stays essential too because she deals with air units like a pro. Giant Control might not look fancy, but it's one of the most important decks for learning Clash Royale's basics. It teaches spacing, elixir management, and when to turn defense into offense. Once you master that flow, you'll already be playing better than half the players in your arena. It's not flashy, but it wins and it always will. Hog Cycle now for the opposite style. Where Giant Control is slow and steady, Hog Cycle is fast and relentless. The deck basically says, I don't care how big your push is, I'll outcycle you. That's why Hog Cycle has always been one of the most consistent archetypes in Clash Royale history. Although this is only possible on Arena 5, the goal is simple. You send out a Hog Rider to get chip damage, defend efficiently with cheap cards, and cycle back to your next Hog before your opponent can reset their defense. Classic 2.6 Hog Cycle usually runs Hog Rider, Musketeer, Cannon, Ice Spirit, Skeletons, Fireball, and the Log. But since Ice Spirit and Ice Golem are not unlocked yet at this stage, we'll tweak it a bit. This version uses Musketeer, Hog Rider, Fireball, Skeletons, Cannon, Electro Spirit, Zap, and Bomber. You can also swap the Bomber for Valkyrie if you want a tankier option, though that makes the deck cost slightly higher. It's cheap, fast, and punishes players who waste elixir. If Giant Control teaches patience, Hog Cycle teaches rhythm. You're constantly rotating your cards to keep pressure up while saving elixir on defense. The Hog's job is to force reactions. Even if he only gets 1 hit per push, that 1 hit matters. You repeat that cycle 6 or 7 times, and suddenly, their tower is at half health. One of the reasons this deck is so valuable for early players is that it forces you to learn how to defend with efficiency. You can't just throw everything down because you'll ruin your cycle. You learn spacing, timing, and how to use your building for maximum value. To play it right, don't overcommit on offense. Send a solo Hog with Electro Spirit or Skeletons to block troops. If they counter with something heavy like Mini P.E.K.K.A or Valkyrie, don't panic. Just defend cleanly and cycle back to your next Hog faster than they can. The idea is to chip them down through consistency, not brute force. If you want to master Hog Cycle, focus on prediction and quick reactions. Place your building when a push with a tank shows up so it can pull the unit at the right time and stay active long enough to finish the defense. Keep track of your opponent's counters. Once their building or tank is out of cycle, that's your moment to strike. A good Hog player doesn't wait for opportunities, they create them through smart cycling. This deck also has one of the best learning curves in the game. At first it feels weak because you don't see huge pushes. But as you improve, you realize that consistency beats everything. When you can force a tower down with repeated chip while still defending efficiently, that's when you start to play like a real ladder player. Avoid the mistake of spamming Hog mindlessly. You'll run out of elixir and open yourself up to a huge counter push. Instead, mix in fake pressure plays. For example, if your opponent drops a heavy tank like Giant or Witch in the back, send your Hog in the opposite lane immediately. They'll have no elixir left to defend properly. That small window is what wins you the game. The best part about Hog Cycle is that it never really dies. Even in top arenas, pros still use variations of it because the fundamentals are that strong, so if you get good with it early on, it'll stay useful forever. Arena 6 to 11, Hog Musk Barrel Bait. This deck is one of the most reliable and adaptable options in Clash Royale right now. It's called Hog Musk Barrel Bait, and it combines solid defense with quick counter-attack potential. The deck includes Hog Rider, Goblin Barrel, Musketeer, Skeleton Army, Fire Spirit, Inferno Tower, Fireball, and Zap. It costs 3.3 elixir, which makes it cheap enough to cycle fast while still giving you the tools to handle almost any situation. What makes this deck shine is how balanced it feels. You can play both offensively and defensively without ever feeling stuck. The Hog Rider gives you direct tower pressure, while the Goblin Barrel forces your opponent to constantly keep a spell ready. Together, they create a strong bait strategy where your opponent is pressured to choose what to counter. If they use their log or arrows on your barrel, your skeleton army becomes a nightmare to deal with. If they hold their spell, your barrel chips their tower nonstop. The Musketeer is your answer to air threats. She cleans up baby dragons, minions, and even balloons when supported. The Inferno Tower is your tank killer. It melts through giants, golems, and lava hounds with ease. The key is to place it when a push with a tank shows up so it locks on and burns it down before your tower takes damage. Fire Spirit and Zap serve as quick cycle and support cards that clear small swarms or reset Inferno Dragons, and Sparky. They might look simple, but they often make the difference in tight defenses. The main strategy of this deck is simple but effective. You defend smartly, then strike back immediately. After a clean defense, drop a Hog and maybe a Fire Spirit to apply pressure while your opponent is low on elixir. You can also pair the Hog with Goblin Barrel for double lane pressure, which forces mistakes. The constant back and forth tempo is what keeps this deck fun and strong. The biggest thing to remember when using Hog Musk Barrel Bait is patience. You don't need to go all in early. Instead, learn your opponent's counters. Once you know what they use for your Goblin Barrel, you can start predicting and outcycling them. For example, if they keep using log on your barrel, wait till they use it on defense, then throw another barrel right after while sending your Hog on the opposite lane. That kind of pressure makes opponents panic and lose control. Another great part of this deck is how easy it is to pick up. You don't need fancy placements or hard predictions to make it work. Everything in it feels natural. You defend, counter, and repeat. It rewards awareness and good timing more than mechanical skill. If you're trying to climb ladder or stabilize your trophies, Hog Musk Barrel Bait is one of the safest and most rewarding decks you can run right now. Giant Double Prince Beatdown. This deck fits perfectly for mid-arenas because it is powerful, simple to use, and teaches players how to build strong pushes. It runs Giant, Dark Prince, Prince, Mega Minion, Minions, Fireball, Bats, and Zap. The goal is straightforward. You build behind your Giant and let the two princes crush anything in their path. It is a classic beatdown deck that still works incredibly well in today's media because of how fast it can switch between defense and offense. The Giant is your main win condition. You use him to tank for your supporting troops and soak up tower damage while your princes deal the real punishment. The regular prince hits hard in single target fights, especially when he gets his charge off, and the Dark Prince adds splash damage that clears out swarms. Together, they destroy defensive lines quickly and make it difficult for opponents to find clean counters. On defense, this deck is surprisingly strong. You can use the princes separately to handle pushes depending on what is coming. The Dark Prince's shield lets him survive spells and splash hits, while the regular Prince's charge takes out tanks and mini-tanks with ease. Mega Minion and Minions give you air coverage, making sure you do not get caught off guard by Balloon or Baby Dragon. Your spells, Fireball, and Zap tie everything together. Fireball wipes out support troops behind tanks like Musketeers or Wizards, while Zap handle light swarms such as Minion Horde or Skeleton Army. The timing of these spells can completely swing the game. For instance, using Zap just before your Giant reaches the tower can clear the way for both princes to connect cleanly and end the push with huge damage. The main strategy is to defend efficiently, build up elixir, and then go all in behind a Giant. Drop the Giant in the back, let your elixir build, and then stack your support cards as the push moves forward. Once the giant crosses the bridge, both princes should be ready to charge. That is when the deck feels unstoppable. The pressure is enormous and most opponents crumble if they do not have strong defensive buildings. One of the best things about this deck is how forgiving it is. Even if your first push fails, your cards are solid on their own. Prince and Dark Prince can handle counterattacks easily, and you can rebuild another push right after. It teaches patience, timing, and how to manage Elixir in a controlled way without rushing every play. If you're playing between Arena 6 and 10, this deck gives you everything you need. You get a tank, splash, single target power, and reliable spells. Once you reach higher arenas like Arena 11, you can move into faster Hog or Miner decks. But for now, Giant Double Prince Beatdown is the perfect choice to climb confidently and learn how to dominate with steady, calculated pushes. Goblin Giant Double Prince. As you advance to Arena 9, you'll find an important new card to enhance your strategy, the Goblin Giant. This unlock is particularly relevant because it can be integrated to significantly improve the previously mentioned deck. That is where the Goblin Giant Double Prince deck comes in. It is one of the most explosive and satisfying decks in this range because it gives you both raw strength and great defense without feeling too heavy. The deck includes Goblin Giant, Prince, Dark Prince, Goblin Gang, Bats, Spear Goblins, Fireball, and Zap. Everything in it plays a clear role, which makes it easy to learn, but hard to master. The Goblin Giant is your main win condition. He walks forward with 2 Spear Goblins inside his backpack that chip away at defenses as he tanks for the princes. That small bit of range support makes a huge difference, especially when you are facing swarm troops or cheap cycle cards. The goal is simple. Let your Goblin Giant take the hits while your princes charge through and destroy whatever stands in front of them. The Prince brings single target damage that melts tanks like Giant or P.E.K.K.A., while the Dark Prince clears out anything grouped together. Their combined strength makes them one of the deadliest duos in Clash Royale. When both princes charge at the same time, the enemy tower usually has no chance. Even if your push gets stopped halfway through, you often force your opponent to spend more elixir than you did, which sets you up perfectly for the next attack. Defensively, this deck is very balanced. You have Goblin Gang and Bats to distract and pressure, Spear Goblins to deal with air units, and both princes to clean up on the ground. The Goblin Gang is especially useful because it can shut down big threats like Hog Rider or Miner if placed right. Pair that with Zap or Fireball and you can handle almost any type of push. Fireball is your main spell for clearing supporting troops like Wizards, Musketeers, or Electro Dragons that try to stop your Giant. Zap is your quick response card that resets Inferno towers, kills small swarms, or buys you an extra second for your push to connect. Timing both spells correctly can completely flip a losing game in your favor. The best way to play this deck is to stay patient. Start small, defend smart, and wait for a good elixir lead before going all in with your Goblin Giant push. You can also build light counterattacks after defending. For example, if your Dark Prince survives on low health, drop a Goblin Giant in front and turn it into an instant threat. This is what makes the deck feel so dynamic. You can switch from defense to offense in one quick move. One of the best parts about this deck is that it works well against almost everything you face in Arena 9. It has air defense, ground defense, swarms, and strong spells. There's no single weak spot unless you completely mismanage your elixir. That is why it is perfect for learning control and timing while still having the power to end games fast. If you enjoy decks that make your pushes feel unstoppable, Goblin Giant Double Prince will feel perfect. It teaches how to protect a win condition, when to build momentum, and how to punish overcommitment. Once you master it, you will find yourself breezing through the mid-arenas with confidence and style. Arena 10 to 15, 2.9 Royal Hog Cycle. The 2.9 Royal Hog Cycle deck is what happens when control and aggression shake hands. It's fast, tricky, and perfect for players who like to outthink rather than overpower their opponents. The deck runs Royal Hog, Skeletons, Fire Spirit, Royal Delivery, Cannon, the Log, Earthquake, and Archer Queen. Every single card has a clear purpose, and when they work together, the flow feels clean and unstoppable. At its core, this deck is all about cycling faster than your opponent can defend. With an average elixir cost of just 2.9, you can always stay one step ahead. The Royal Hogs are your main win condition, and the moment you split them at the bridge, you create instant pressure on both lanes. That split push is what makes the deck special. It forces your opponent to defend evenly, and even if they stop one side, the other often sneaks in for solid chip damage. Your support cards do most of the heavy lifting behind the scenes. Skeletons and Fire Spirit keep the deck light and fast, helping you cycle back to your win condition in seconds. Fire Spirit also clears small swarms or forces cheap responses that open space for your next push. Royal Delivery and Cannon handle most of your defense. The delivery hits hard and spawns a recruit for extra protection, while the cannon melts tanks for only 3 elixir. When placed properly, Cannon can even stop graveyard pushes or distract cards like Giant and Hog Rider. The Archer Queen is your secret weapon. She is your main air defense and one of the most powerful support troops in the game. Her ability lets her shred through pushes that would normally seem impossible to stop. If you protect her after defending, she can easily turn into a deadly counterattack. Earthquake and Log complete the deck's spell setup. Earthquake punishes buildings and clears low health troops while chipping the tower. Log handles ground swarms, resets charges, and keeps your defense stable. The key to mastering this deck is knowing when to combine Earthquake with your Royal Hogs. If your opponent drops a building to defend, drop Earthquake right on top of it and watch your Hogs get 2 or 3 extra hits every single time. In single elixir, focus on defense and chip damage. You want to figure out what cards your opponent uses to stop your Hogs and learn their cycle. In double elixir, the deck truly shines. You can start applying non-stop pressure by sending split Hogs whenever your opponent invests heavily in the back. If you keep your cycle tight, you can overwhelm even the best defenders. The 2.9 Royal Hog cycle might look small and simple, but it teaches one of the biggest lessons in Clash Royale: control the rhythm of the match. Once you master that rhythm, you stop reacting and start dictating the entire game. Every push feels clean, every defense feels planned, and every win feels earned. Giant Graveyard Beatdown. Now we move to something darker, heavier, and just a little toxic. Giant Graveyard Beatdown. This deck is the ultimate test of pressure and timing. It's for players who love overwhelming their opponent with sudden pushes that feel impossible to stop. The combination of Giant in front and Graveyard behind creates chaos on the battlefield. It's messy, unpredictable, and deadly when played right. The usual version runs Giant Graveyard Knight Witch Bowler Snowball, Little Prince, Bats, Guards. Some players swap in Night Witch or Witch, but the core idea stays the same. You use Giant as your tank, then drop Graveyard on the enemy tower while their troops are distracted. By the time they realize what's happening, their tower is swarmed by skeletons and the Giant is still punching through. The reason this deck dominates mid to high arenas is because of how quickly it punishes overcommitment. The moment your opponent spends too much elixir on offense, you can drop a Giant at the bridge and follow with Graveyard. They won't have enough elixir left to defend properly. It's the ultimate you made a mistake and now you pay for it deck. On defense, it might not look strong at first, but it's actually very solid. Night Witch melts tanks. Bowler crushes Hog or Ram Rider, and Bats handle air units easily. If you can keep rotating properly, you'll always have an answer. Plus, every defensive win can turn into a counter push. For example, if your Night Witch survives, you can drop a Giant in front, and suddenly you've got a deadly counter going. The main trick with this deck is timing the Graveyard. Don't drop it the instant your Giant reaches the bridge. Wait a second or two so your opponent wastes their defense too early. That tiny delay can be the difference between one skeleton connecting and all of them overwhelming the tower. You also have to know when to reset. Sometimes it's better to take a smaller push and defend again instead of forcing an all-in. Giant Graveyard is all about momentum. Yeah, once you get that rhythm going, your opponent feels like they can't breathe. Even if they defend one push, they're already facing another. The tower chip adds up fast, and once double elixir hits, you can cycle pushes so quickly that it feels unfair. It's not a deck for the patient, but it's perfect for players who love chaos and fast payoffs. One more thing about this deck is how good it is at teaching adaptation. Every opponent will defend your graveyard differently. Some will use Valkyrie, others will use Baby Dragon or Poison. The more you play, the more you learn how to bait those counters out before going in again. It makes you smarter about reading enemy rotations, which helps you in every other deck later. If you want that satisfying moment where your opponent's tower melts while they panic spam every button on their screen, this is your deck. It's dirty, it's explosive, and it's effective all the way to higher trophies. Electro Giant Beatdown. Now this one is for the tank lovers. Electro Giant Beatdown is one of those decks that can make your opponent instantly panic. The moment that shiny metal giant starts rolling down the lane, it feels like a slow, unstoppable disaster hitting right for their tower. This deck is all about control and punishment. You don't play fast, you play calculated. Every move feels heavy and deliberate. The deck setup goes like this: Electro Giant, Baby Dragon, Lightning, Tornado, Dark Prince, Electro Wizard, Goblin Cage, and Barbarian Barrel. Every card has its role, and together they create that perfect mix of pressure and defense. The Electro Giant stands at the front like a moving wall, while the rest of your troops support from behind. The Baby Dragon clears swarms with Splash, the Dark Prince controls the ground with his charge, and the Electro Wizard keeps everything stunned just long enough for your Giant to keep moving. Electro Giant's ability reflects damage back at anything that dares to hit him, which makes him perfect against buildings and ranged defenders. Drop him in front of a push, and just watch your opponent's troops fry themselves. It's satisfying every single time. He is expensive, but worth every drop of elixir when you use him right. The strategy is built around strong counter pushes. You start by defending carefully with cards like Goblin Cage, Electro Wizard, or Baby Dragon. Once you've survived their attack, you drop your Electro Giant in front of whatever troops are left and let them turn defense into offense. Tornado and Lightning are your main spells for support. Tornado groups up defenders so your splash units can melt them, and Lightning clears out annoying cards like Musketeer or Inferno Tower that try to slow your push. The key here is patience. You can't just drop your tank without a plan, or you'll be drained of elixir and punished fast. You have to wait for the right moment, usually when your opponent overcommits on one side. That's your signal to strike. When you learn how to read that moment, this deck becomes scary strong. In double elixir, this deck truly shines. You can start stacking support units behind the Electro Giant until the push looks unstoppable. The combination of Baby Dragon Splash and Tornado's pull makes the battlefield look like chaos in motion. One perfect pull and everything your opponent built just disappears. The biggest mistake players make is wasting Lightning too early. Always wait until you can hit both a key defensive troop and the tower. That small bit of patience can change the entire push. Electro Giant Beatdown is not flashy, but it's brutally effective. It's the kind of deck that makes people rage quit after one clean push, because once that big metal monster locks onto their tower, it's already over.